everyone, and thanks for joining us today. A big welcome to both our existing customers and those that are new to Zalaris. My name is Hannah Hale, and today we're talking about the future of SAP recruiting and what that shift means for your organization. In today's session, we'll give you a clear, practical view of where best practice recruiting is heading and how you can start planning your next steps. So, let's kick off. Before we get started, we have a quick disclaimer that the content shared today is confidential, non-binding, and subject to change. So let's meet our speakers. First, we have Claire Badger, who's the EVP of APAC at Zalaris. Claire brings deep experience in SuccessFactors and HR transformation, working with organizations across complex, multi-country environments. Next, we have Jessie Zhang, our senior consultant at Zalaris. Jessie works directly with customers on solution design and delivery with a strong focus on how to operationalize SuccessFactors and SmartRecruiters in real-world environments. And finally, we have Pag Miles, Strategic Alliances Lead at SmartRecruiters. Pag works closely with SAP and partners globally and will walk you through the SmartRecruiters platform and its capabilities. Between them, you'll get a strong mix of SAP strategy, platform insights, and practical delivery experience. So let's jump into the agenda. We'll have Claire who will walk us through the SAP perspective and why this shift is happening. Pag from SmartRecruiters will take us through the platform and its capabilities, and Jessie will focus on how to operationalize this within your SAP landscape. We'll also cover what transitioning looks like and what roles Zalaris can play in helping you as your partner. As we go through, please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A or the chat functionality, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So with that, I'll hand over to Claire. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Hannah. So first, a little bit about Zalaris. So Zalaris is a Norwegian headquartered organisation. We've been in operation for over 25 years. We are an SAP Gold partner. And we specialise in all things HCM as it pertains to SAP. We help customers through all phases of their implementation, so strategic advisory as they're going through selecting and understanding their needs. We help with transformation and implementation once we're on the road to delivering a solution for you. And then finally, application support and optimization. So supporting solutions that we implement along with providing health checks and optimization type programs. We support globally. So we've got geographical coverage across Europe and the APAC regions. And we are a team of very specialized HCM consultants with over 350 certified SAP consultants. Including some newly certified SmartRecruiters consultants. We have a wide array of customers across the globe. We've got a few of those logos on the screen. And excitingly, some of those have already been on the SmartRecruiters journey. So we have a couple of customers up there that implemented SmartRecruiters before it was acquired by SAP. And we've also got some new and existing customers that are on that transformation pathway now as they transition to SmartRecruiters. Now let's talk a little bit about why we're heading in this direction. So SAP SuccessFactors Recruiting was one of the original SuccessFactors modules when SuccessFactors first began. So it is one of the legacy modules. It has evolved over time, but we do commonly hear challenges from customers around things like user experience, where sometimes it can be deemed to be a little clunky, requiring additional training for managers and general users of the recruiting module. It is quite rigid in the way that it's configured. There are a lot of elements that remain on XML. Configuration, requiring your partners and things like that to step in to help with changes. And it is also very template driven. So where we see expanding needs due to global requirements and compliance needs, that does often drive additional templates, which can bring additional complexity. AI has come a long way within the SuccessFactors platform, and we're constantly seeing that with each release, but it still is coming off a lower baseline. So there is kind of limited AI functionality out of the box. There's also just some common functionality which you might have come to expect as being common or expected functionality, things like text messaging, which aren't native features in SuccessFactors, so they require add-ons and additional partner work for that to occur. And then as we've seen SAP acquire SmartRecruiters, we have started to see their strategic R&D investment now directed towards the SmartRecruiters platform. So we do expect that that kind of R&D will very much diminish within SuccessFactors Recruiting. So SAP obviously identified that shift in terms of needs as it comes to recruiting. And so in 2025, they announced that they were looking to acquire SmartRecruiters, and that acquisition was completed in September 2025. We've now started to see what that roadmap looks like, and the release for half one 2026, which dropped into preview on the 14th of April, has brought some expansions with SmartRecruiters. So integrations to SmartRecruiters. We're also seeing some amalgamation of the tools, which Jesse and Padge will talk about more as they get into their sections. And there is a full roadmap planned, which again will show, showing how the two products will entwine. Now, SmartRecruiters is a best of breed recruiting solution. It is recognized as a leader by many of the market leaders out there. So it is a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which is a very exciting thing to acknowledge. They have over 4,000 organizations around the world already using the product. They cover 95 plus countries. I think it might actually be over 100. And they have 350 plus marketplace add-ons that you can use to extend your solution. So things like background checks and reference checks and all of those sorts of pieces that we do as part of a recruiting process. They have over 350 of those available that you can add on to expand your solution. So really tailoring to all sorts of needs that we see within recruiting customers. So a very exciting time for recruiting within SAP. And I think a great time to hand over to Padge, who's going to tell you more about the SmartRecruiters platform and show you a thing or two. Thanks, Padge.
Brilliant. Thanks, Claire. So yeah, hi everyone, and thank you so much for Zalaris and the team for inviting us on today. Massively excited about the partnership. So I just wanted to share with you, as the team have said, just to give you a bit of background for those of you who don't know who SmartRecruiters are. So you might or have heard of SmartRecruiters, but want to go in a bit more detail. So first of all, I've been in the industry for quite some time, 24 years. So I remember back in 2010 when SmartRecruiters first came to market. And I think we're at a time in that market where the applicant tracking ATS systems, recruitment systems were pretty much, version 1.0 of, in terms of clunky, hard to configure, UI wasn't great, integrations were incredibly painful. And highly customized. We were still in the customization space, not even the configuration space necessarily. So SmartRecruiters really wanted to come to the market with three main pillars to how they can disrupt the market. So pillar number one was mobile first. And today that sounds really obvious, but back in 2010, the Apple phone had been around for 2.5, 3 years, Apple Store 2 years. So none of the platforms are really built from that viewpoint. So mobile first was number one. Second was open in terms of APIs and integrations. So Claire mentioned the 350 plug and play technologies that we have within the technology ecosystem, and that's absolutely right. Consolidation is happening in the market, as we know. This acquisition is a great example of that. But we're still going to need to be able to integrate with other systems. So we wanted to make sure that it was easy, or as easy as possible, to integrate. And the third pillar, which sounds really cheesy, which is actually we wanted to build a technology that was an enjoy to use. It was enjoyment. It was, if you see what Claire mentioned about some of the maybe the challenges or pain points that current customers have on recruiting and other ATSs, it's normally about user adoption, usability, too many clicks, clunky, doesn't make sense. So we wanted to build something that everyone could use, whether you're a candidate applying for a job, looking at a job offer, whether you're a recruiter looking at information across the board, or whether you're probably the most difficult user, which is a line manager, coming in and out the system, not on a regular basis. So those are the main three pillars that we built to disrupt the market, which is exactly what happened. We then started to sign up quite a few organizations, our largest Bosch being about 400,000 employees and above, and then some other very well-known brands like LinkedIn and Visa. And then 2024, really, we focused on agentic AI. So AI has been around for quite some time, as we all know, but agentic AI is really where we wanted to focus there. And the use case behind it, the customer output, the customer value of it. So we really started to go into the space of around high volume, high hiring, so retail, hospitality, and we started to hoover up in terms of some of the customers that we've got there. So Fraser Group, Qantas, and we really started to expand. And that supports what Claire mentioned about the 100 countries. We've got 41 languages. And just so you know, out of the 4,000 customers, 35% of those are SAP. So Claire mentioned that, talking about some of the customers we already integrated with SAP, Employee Central. So 35% of our 4,000 are SAP customers. If we go to the next slide, please, Hannah. So supporting that 2024 and beyond is our little green alien, Winston, and we're going to be seeing Winston in the demonstration in a second. But Winston has different flavors, and this is definitely a focus area for us in terms of roadmap and development. But today, Winston comes in a number of different flavors. We have match, screen, chat, and companion. And really the focus is how do we get more productive, more engagement, slicker experience for every single user persona. So match is very much around how do we help our employees, our colleagues, match candidates at speed. So we're going to see that in the demonstration. We've got screening as well, so shortlisting, looking at CVs, reviewing them, be able to create summaries off the back of it to help speed up digestion of information. Winston Chat, and that's now on the career side. So that's the candidate experience. We're going to show that and show the difference between Winston as an agentic AI agent versus your traditional chat bot. And then we're going to have a look at Winston Companion as well. So that's around automating, being more productive. What things do I need to think about today? I don't have to do multiple clicks. I can just go to Winston and Winston will tell me the areas that I need to focus on. And at the bottom there, you can see a whole, just an example of some of the outputs that customers are getting and the value that's being created in terms of speeding up the process, candidate experience and quality of hire. If we go to the next slide, please. So Claire touched on some of the pain points and challenges that SF recruiting customers have. There are a number of reasons. As I said, 35% of our clients already use SAP, and actually most of them have migrated across historically from SF recruiting and other applicant tracking systems. But we really started to filter this down. Okay, what are the top 6 reasons of why organizations have made the move? And they link to what some of the challenges. So effortless user experience, we've talked around that. Persona-driven journeys, depending who you are, is dependent what you can see and how easy you can carry the task out. Configuration, really, really simple. Self-service configuration, you can configure anything in the platform. But again, configuration is great, but understanding your processes is really key. Unified CRM, so CRM is now standard in the platform for campaign management, bulk processing, silver medalists, landing pages, so that's all included and supported as standard. Interview scheduling, one of the biggest pain points. I spent 10 years talking to organizations from an advisory consulting capacity. Their top 3 challenges without a doubt was interview scheduling. I think it's something like 50-60% of a recruiter's time is spent rescheduling, rebooking Interviews. So how do we automate that? How do we streamline that? That's all supported, whether it's panel, group, that's all supported and automated in the system, and self-scheduling as well. AI sprinkled across the platform. We talked about Winston will show examples, but there's AI elements across the platform, and we're going to be highlighting that. So this isn't just, oh, there's AI over here. It's actually across the platform to benefit all users for the different processes that they're doing. And candidate experience as well. This is absolutely critical. We're going to be showing how Winston Chat supports that. If we go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to cover this. It's just one slide on this, but I thought it could be of quite of interest. So Jessie is going to focus on the integration roadmap between SmartRecruiters and SAP. I'm going to just cover this in terms of roadmap, in terms of functionality. And there's three main areas for this. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the ones which I think are most exciting to me, but I think they might be also to yourselves. On the left-hand side is agentic. So I mentioned that about Winston. He's going to, Winston is going to come into lots of different use cases, and it's going to be built up. That's a big area for us to focus on. Agentic CRM is massive. So this is not going in the system and creating campaigns. This is going to the system saying, Winston, I'd like to create a campaign for data scientists in Northern Europe, and I'd like you to advertise this on social media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. This is the type of person we're looking for, and it will go off and build all of that for you. So this is how we're going to speed up the process, become more productive. Winston's really going to support that. The other one I'd pick out of here is Winston Interview. So that's really, really interesting. So how do we actually automate the whole of that? So it's going to be an avatar that's going to be doing the interview for the organization, for your organization. Obviously the candidate's going to know that, but that means that interviews can happen 24/7 whenever. We don't have to book them in. They're automatically booked in, they're automatically done. Everything's captured, scored, and we're on to the next stage. So that's really exciting as well as the Winston flavors we have today being enhanced. Unified suite, Jesse's going to cover that. And the third pillar there is a trust at the core. This is fundamental. AI being everywhere. You can see a number of court cases at the moment around AI. We are ethical, we are transparent. We tick all the boxes in terms of the AI compliance that's required. But one of the big things out of here is fraud detection. I think 62% of candidates that apply for a job are using some form of AI. So this is how do we make sure that then when they're going through assessments, for example, that they're not actually cheating in that assessment. So fraud detection, I think, is a really great feature. Next slide, please. So last slide here from me, and then we'll get into the demonstration because I'm a very visual person. So I definitely want to show you what the system looks like, give you a sneak peek. SmartRecruiters is what we like to say is from hello to hire. So on the left hand side there, from job creation all the way through to offer. Now Jesse's going to cover this later, but we have a number of integrations already built for raising the job. So the job actually will be raised in Employee Central. Information will then be pushed into SmartRecruiters, and that's where I'll start the demo from. So from within SmartRecruiters, job creation, approval, everything that goes with that, automation, templates, all the way through applying for the job, through to the shortlisting process and all the configuration that comes in there. And that information is flowing back into Employee Central or SAP Onboarding 2.0. I'll leave it there in terms of the integrations because Jesse's going to be covering that. If we just do one final click, Hannah. So this is something I also wanted to touch on. So yes, end-to-end ATS, as you'd expect, recruitment system. However, then we have the Winston flavors that we mentioned there, the chat, the match, and companion. But as well as that, coming to the supporting of the user adoption, engagement, user experience, this is where we wanted to make it fun, and we wanted to go to where the individual is, the user is. So whether you're on your mobile, because it's mobile first, whether you're on your desktop, whether it's email, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's text, whether you're in Teams and you want to carry, you don't want to have to log into SmartRecruiters, you actually just want to carry out an action, something, an approval, maybe feedback from an interview in Teams, in Slack, you can absolutely do that. So we want to go to where the user is to make it very simplistic and not have to log into SmartRecruiters every time. With that, I will jump into the demonstration and give you a feel for what the system looks like. So I will now share my screen. team, let me know when you can see. Okay, brilliant. So for today, what I'm going to be doing is, and that's why I wanted to really point out the fact that you can do this in Teams, you can do it in Slack, you can do it on text, you can do it on WhatsApp, but I'm going to be showing you in the back office system. So today I'm going to be showing you two main personas. Number one is going to be a hiring manager or a recruiter that's come into the system. This is the back end system. And the second persona I'm going to be is onto the website, and we're going to actually apply for a job and look for it through there. Now, traditionally, demos can be up to 3 hours, so or even longer. So I'm gonna whittle that down into a few minutes. But I want to touch on some of the elements that we talked about in the presentation. So I'm on the home page at the minute that I've logged into, and I've got a number of things I can do. At the top here is the navigation, so where there's jobs, communities, people, analytics, reporting. The idea is that on this page, you can see everything or access everything you need to do with a single click. And the first thing I wanted to touch on is collaboration, because I think this is something, again, that I think adds real value on top of SF recruiting today. And that comes in a couple of flavors. I love flavors. I add flavors into everything I talk about. So we have tasks and activities. So this is internal collaboration. So tasks is where you can create any task you want, and you can send that to any individual you want as well. So that task will then appear, you'd have a notification in your bell notification, and that could be anything from feedback to publishing jobs to approving, to creating interview slots. So anything can be created very quick, couple of clicks, and off you go. And you can actually sort those. You can see which ones are priority, which ones, because I'm not great, so which ones are overdue, they're in red. And I could look at tasks I've actually assigned other individuals as well. The second part, which I really like, and has like a Facebook interface, which I really like as well. But my kids say I'm old because I'm on Facebook. But in terms of what you can do here, what I really like about this is traditionally when you're working on a job with different users in the business, you're on Teams, you're on Slack, you're on email, and you've got all these conversations happening all over the place in different systems. This brings it back into one system, fully audited. So for example, I could at one of my colleagues and say, Adrian, please have a look at, and then I can highlight a particular job that we might be working on at that moment in time, and see and see a particular candidate. So here I can easily tag one of my colleagues. I can link them to a job. I can link them to a candidate, fully audited. So all of this would be in the links to the job. So the job audit, the candidate audit, the communications, everything's logged there really easily. And this can be an open note, a direct message to everyone, and they can reply to it, like it, comment, and everything else as you'd expect. So I really like that in terms of the collaboration element. Secondly, that's internal collaboration. Then you've got external collaboration. So on the right hand side here, I've got my inbox. Now my inbox will store every communication that's been sent out by me. Again, recruitment's a team game. And so this allows me to collaborate internally in communications, but externally as well. I've got my full inbox here of all communications, and it's got predefined templates that I can use. WhatsApp would be an option here in the drop-down list. But I also have access to my team inbox. And also, if you're using agencies, I've got access to that. So all in one place, really simple. It might sound basic, but the speed at which you can find the information with a couple of clicks to everything you need we're finding is really, really critical. Now, in here, you've obviously can go through those clicks that I mentioned, but you could also use Winston. So Winston is down here on the right-hand side. And what this allows me to do with a single click is Winston's going to say, hey, what can I help you with? Do you want to see my upcoming interviews, top candidates, interview feedback, schedule interviews? So at one click, I can find and get to my information really quickly. So I've got my at a glance, but I've also got Winston that I can use at any time to get to the information really quickly. Lastly, what I'm going to do is just quickly, I won't create a whole job, so don't worry, but I just want to show you that process because I think it's really important. So we can easily create a job. Now this job here, again, the information could be pre-populated and pushed from Employee Central through the integration, which Jesse would talk about. And that will come through. But for this example, I'm just going to select a template. Now these templates, again, will be surfaced through from Employee Central. All fields can be configured in terms of what information that you want to have that's mandatory, that's optional within the platform. We can have languages, so the 41 languages that we mentioned here. But I wanted to touch on here because, as I said, we've got these core flavors of Winston, but also we've got AI sprinkled across. So whether that's creating the job description or whether that's refining the job description, the advert, these can be done at a single click. What I also like about this is the preview. So we can actually preview the job at this point. We'd have to create the whole thing in preview. We can preview at any time. If I click on next, it takes you through these processes. I'm going to stop on hiring team and then I'll come out into the candidate experience. But there's a couple of things here which I think will be really useful. So number one is these fields that you're looking at here will be pre-populated, as I mentioned, from Employee Central. But if I select any of these, all of them can have automation that's linked to them. So if I click sales, it's now saying that the head office application experience is created. Why this is really critical is that it automates the whole process, and all of those will have templates, actions that are linked directly to this job. So think about this, and a number of our customers are consolidating. They might have a couple of ATSs across the business, one for graduate campus, one for high volume, one for corporate. All of this can be done in this system in the way, and you can configure the workflow. That's something you can work with Zalaris on in terms of best practice and configuration. And if I click on next at that point, this is the last screen I'll show you. And the reason is that we have approvals, and those approvals can be different for different jobs, linked to different processes. So whether it's approvals, whether it's templates, whether it's stages, all of it can be fully automated and linked to the particular job. That takes you to advertising, which you can set on delays. So your internal, intranet, your external, job boards, fully integrated job distributor, all the way through to sharing on your social posts. So that is hopefully gives you an idea of some of the value that it can bring in terms of collaboration, creating a job, and Winston in the back end. Now we're going to go to the candidate experience. So I can go to a website and there's a number of options here. Definitely speak to Claire and Jesse and Hannah and the team about those options in more detail. But there's lots of options you can do on the career site. For today, I'm going to focus on Winston Chat to really show you the difference of what and the value it brings. I could go and search and find a job and apply in the standard way. But I've got Winston here, which I'm going to click on and show you this experience. So again, this can be done on your mobile device. And the first thing it's going to say is, hi, I'm Winston, I'm your personal assistant, how can I help you? And the first thing it's going to say is, right, okay, privacy policy, yes, I accept that. And you can also change the languages you saw there, so you can change those languages, which obviously Winston supports. So fantastic. What about exploring some opportunities? Now, the thing I really want to focus here is the difference between, and if you remember I said about chatbot, and the difference between a agentic AI agent. So that's what I'm going to show you now. And the two real parts are, number one is it's an LLM. So what it will do is it won't fall over. So if you ask it a tricky question, it's not going to suddenly, fall over and the conversation's going to stop and you have to restart again. So I'm going to show you an example of that. And the second one is you can plug it into a knowledge base. So that means it can surface any information you want about it. So I'm going to show you those two examples. In this example, I'm going to assume that I've gone and actually done quite a lot of research and had a look at some jobs. So I want to ask it quite a detailed question to find out. And this is where it's going to really show the knowledge base here. So do you provide flexible working as an example? So I've done a bit of research. I've seen some of the jobs, but I want to go in a bit more detail about it. I could ask anything from culture, benefit, anything like that. What it's going to do is it's going to look at the knowledge base it's plugged into and surface that information. So that could be video, it could be web pages, content, but again, it's surfaced it in one place. So I don't have to go anywhere else. I'm in the content, I can review it. And that's quite an easy process actually to plug it into your, as an organization's knowledge base and the content you want Winston to share and surface. Now I want to try and trip it up. So this is where the LLM is going to kick in. So there's a classic discussion that happens in our house when we get a takeaway, and I'm going to ask the question just to see if Winston will fall over. So should pineapple be on pizza? So it's what a classic. Well, yeah, see it. Hannah's up for it. So we don't know. So what it's going to say is, now it doesn't trip over. This is where LLM kicks in. Great, the pineapple on pizza debate. Now, what's really interesting about this is, speaking of choices, have you considered an amazing career and opportunities at SmartRecruiters? It's bringing me back into the conversation. It's not falling over. It's bringing me back into the conversation. So at this point, I could keep going on and asking it multiple questions. But for time purposes, we're going to say, right, okay, do you have any jobs in London? I'm saying London, that's where I'm based, but that could be, you could just say you have any jobs. It could be London, it could be any country. It's up to you. Now, what it's going to do is surface and show you some of the jobs, which I could then click on and see that information. But actually, I want to discover all the jobs that have come back. So it's listing all the 22 jobs that are opening. I can filter it. Again, I'm still in this window. I'm not having to go anywhere else. It's really concise. I can do this on my mobile device. And I can filter any of those for those jobs. What I really like is the Google API integration. So this is now flipping to maps and I can see where those jobs are. And I can actually put in here where I live and I can say, I want something that's in a 20-minute radius of walking or by train or by car. So it's easily allowing me to find that information really, really quickly. At that point, what I could do is I could say, oh, there's some quite interesting information here that's quite useful that I might want to apply for. And at that point, I could just click on the particular job and I could apply for it. So I can see the information and I can then proceed. I can acknowledge again from a data protection point of view and apply now. And then what it's going to do is say, right, project manager role. And then it's going to allow me to drag and drop my information in for here. I'm not going to do that today, but it will CV parse all the information. It can then ask me killer questions and sifting questions, which again can then provide information, automate things in the back office. What I will say here, and this is a really common thread, and I don't know if anyone knows in the audience, but the percentage of people that start an application but never submit is over 90%. So there is a very high reject or termination rate of people actually submitting the application. So what will happen is if I stop here now, or if I stop here now, or if I drag and drop my CV and then I stop, it will bring in my mobile number and bring in my email, and then it will ping me. Winston will ping me and say, hey, I can see, Padge, you started your application, but you didn't complete it. Here's a link. You click on that link and it takes you directly back to the exact position you were at in the application, and then you can continue the application. So really quick and easy. Just as before I end on the candidate experience side, Winston, I like green aliens. I like the name Winston. You don't have to have a green alien. You don't have to call it Winston. So we can change that. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of live customer sites. Number 1 is Grab, based in APAC. And that one actually is not calling it, it's not a green alien, and it's Career Navigator. So again, it's a different feel for it. My second favorite that we have here is Wynn Resorts, and they're a leisure sort of casino gambling, and they call it Lucky, which I find quite funny. But my favorite, absolutely without a doubt, again, is in the APAC region in Australia and New Zealand, and it's a dentist, and it's Dr. Wisdom Tooth, a little tooth and some eyes and some lips. So in terms of the branding, the persona that you want to create, Winston can give you that in the system itself. The last thing I'm just going to cover in the last couple of minutes is we've applied for a job. We're coming back into the system, and it's also got easy apply as well. So you don't have to create an account and everything like that. It's very, very quick. But I'll now just bring you back into the system and show you a couple of things. So I'm going to go back into jobs. Now, what will happen is if someone applies, I will get a task, be notified if you want to set up the configuration to have someone there. If I click on jobs, it will list the jobs. It can list all jobs that I have access to or that I've created. So this one is Senior Compliance Manager. And I'm not going to go through this in detail, but it will show me all the stages of the job, everything I need to know about the job in one page and one click. I can see the advert, the job advert. I can see applicant sourcing, activity. So it breaks down all the sourcing, where everyone's come from, the hiring process, interviews. But this one's applicants. Again, I can filter all of those if I want to. I can select all of those and do bulk processing and actions very, very quickly and easily. But I want to have a look at a particular individual. So we'll say that Sims applied. Now, what this is doing is it's creating information here in a tabulated format, so I can see it and say it's answered screening questions. And this is where Winston Match comes in. It's automatically provided me with a score, right? So, Sims got 4 stars. What does that even mean? And that's what we're going to have a look at now. And a rating, but this is again configuration options. I can just drag and drop these to configure the table and the information I want to see. So again, really, really easy. I can click on Sim individually and carry out an action, or I can click on his talent card. That will show me an overview of the CV that he imported into the system, any screening questions that he's had, but where's the match come from? And that's skills, experience, and education. Let's drill deeper into the skills element. And this is where it's ethical and transparent in terms of not black box, it's just pumping out 4-star rating and match. So it's looking at technical skills and transferable skills. And then with each of those, it's then highlighting those particular skills and where it's verified the information. It also infers skills as well. Again, you can take those out if you want to, but it infers skills based on their experience of other skills they might not have put on their CV or application form that it believes that they have based on the industry, the role, and how long they've been in the role. Transferable skills, exactly the same way, work experience and education as well. And at that point, we can carry out a particular task for SIM themselves. We can schedule interviews, invite interviews. We can send messages. We can add them to a community. We can send them, as I said, messages, whether it's WhatsApp. I have a diary here that I can use. I can set all kinds of different durations, group, panel, face-to-face, assessment centers. All of those can be done through the system, fully automated. These can be selected. The hiring team, you can see all their diaries fully integrated with Outlook, Gmail. And then those particular slots can then be published on the website, and candidates can then, SIM could then go on there and select those individuals. The last thing I'll show you here is on the using tasks. What you can do is you can actually provide feedback. So with these tasks, you just have one click and it takes you straight there. And what this is then going to show you is how you fill in information. So we have these scorecards for which, again, completely configurable and different for different roles, but allows you to then add information about Phil. What are they like? What are their biggest problems are solving? So all of these, you can add feedback and score. Those could be scored multiple people, individuals, and then you can again action that individual with full visibility of exactly where they are in the process. Very quick, seeing the system in a very quick way, but hopefully that's given you a bit of a feel for what the system can do and highlighting some of the functionality of why organizations are selecting to go down the SmartRecruiter route. And I'm now going to hand over to Jessie.
Thanks, Pat. It's really nice demo. I don't want any pineapple on my pizza, but I definitely want SmartRecruiters in my system now. So also looking at the deck here, based on all the fabulous features that's available within SmartRecruiters, there are also positive impact by adopting the system. So here we can see some of the feedback coming from our existing customer that's already using SmartRecruiters platform. Definitely that's being reported by many of our customers is the reduction in time for hiring, reduction in cost for hiring, as well as because we are now increasing the direct hire rate, we are seeing an improvement in the quality of hire as well. So based on what Claire and Pat had shared, because now the system is all more flexible as well. So it's more scalable in a way, so encouraging us to have a system that works with any organization that's small or big, whilst ensuring that our system is always compliance with any global standards that's available, like the GDPR that's strictly followed by Europe. So with these benefits, moving on to the next slide, we will also take a look at how the two systems compare between SuccessFactors Recruiting and SmartRecruiters in terms of some of the functionality as well. So as Claire shared, SuccessFactors Recruitment is more of a template-based solution. The benefit of that is that it has a more standardized processes. So making sure that throughout the hiring process, there's no surprises, right? However, with a standardized process, the system also tends to be more rigid. So it doesn't allow so much flexibility. So although we can have as many templates as we need to cater for different requirements or process needs, but all these will require support from our support team. So that may also introduce a cost to it. And it's also very often the case when it comes to starting to use the system, we may also need to have additional training to our end users like recruiters or our hiring managers. So this may not be ideal for our companies as well when we want to expand the solution to support for more departments or regions for the system. So with SmartRecruiters, this is going to change because SmartRecruiters would be more of an experience-driven solution. So some of the areas that we would like to highlight would be, for example, for scheduling and screening. So this one, Patch has mentioned that we can bring in agentic AI to support us. So there's more automated process, and it also can help to reduce time when it comes to manually managing those processes, as well as interviews. Another ones that I see very often that client may say complaints. For example, we may have processes that's standardized, however, not tailored to a specific experience or specific job hire. So it would prolong the hiring process. So let's say we want to do a mass hire in a short duration of time, we may still need to go through the standardized process. So with SmartRecruiters, which we do allow conditional rules or drag and drop of config, this could help to ensure that there's a tailored journey for different hiring type, and also making sure that we will be able to save time during the hiring process as well. Another area that would be really good to have SmartRecruiters in place is the options to integrate with 3,300 plus of vendors within our marketplace of integration options. So for example, for SuccessFactors Recruiting, currently it's only possible throughout the platform to integrate with one selected choice of vendor for background check and assessment. So if we do use SmartRecruiters, the options would be that we can integrate with multiple assessment and check options, so that the flexibility is bigger as compared to SF recruitment as well. So it's not just about the improvement of our user experience within the organization. Another thing that we would definitely want to highlight would be the experience improvement for our candidates. So I would actually say the candidate experience is the one that drives the success of our hiring. So if we can move to the next slide, please, Hannah, thank you. So here we also make a comparison between the traditional ATX experience versus our SmartRecruiters experience for candidates. So for the traditional ATS experience, I believe actually many of us has experienced it before. So very often it would be a very rigid form-heavy based application process. There are many clicks that would be involved. Often the case it's not personalized, or there's no personalization when it comes to experience or job recommendations. So another thing that we often complain about ourselves or get complaint from our candidates would be the long silences between application until we finally hear from the company again. So this would also increase the drop-offs that Patch has mentioned from many of the company or candidates. So once they have applied for the role, they didn't know, they wouldn't know what is actually happening, then they may actually seek opportunity at another organization. So we are at a risk of losing a really suitable candidate for the position as well. So, and since right now for the traditional ATS, they are mainly desktop driven. So when it comes to our application with mobile, it could be that the experience is not optimized. So when SmartRecruiters come in place, first of all, it's a mobile first solution. So we will be able to apply for any role or interact with Winston directly on the mobile as well. So for nowadays, especially when we are so dependable on the phones, this would be actually ideal for us as the candidate. So from here, with the support of agentic AI, we can easily look for jobs that would work for us, as well as we will be able to identify any information that's available for us from the company as well. So Winston Chat is also possible to integrate with our career site, even if we are still using SF recruiting as well. So for example, if there are information about the company, about our company's benefit that I may want to know, I can also use Winston chat to get the information very quickly. So that would be the benefit that is more candidate driven, and with a successful candidate experience, that would also drive up our hiring rate and conversion rate for the hiring process. So now just bringing us back to the benefits of using SmartRecruiters. So here are some of the accreditations coming from our existing customer that's already using SmartRecruiters. And one of the story I would like to highlight is actually one of the feedback coming from Fraser's Group. So for Fraser's Group, when they started implementing or using SmartRecruiters, they have feedback that our candidate was so happy with the system, with the application process, because they were able to complete their application within just 2 to 3 days. And they were constantly getting information about where they are, and they were being engaged constantly by the system or by the organization about their application status. So for some of them, they actually start to doubt, like it's too good to be true, that whether or not some of the communication is legitimate. So in fact, with that, what we have done from SmartRecruiters is we added a delay to the system so that the application process would expand to 9 days instead, meeting the best practice response time instead of just 2 to 3 days. So not only keeping our candidate warm, but also making sure that we are giving enough consideration to all of our candidates' experience, and also make our candidate feel that they have been provided enough of thought to process their application as well. So one of the highlights that SmartRecruiters has brought up that I find is really nice is that the goal of the system is not to just save the time. It's actually to make sure that our candidate doesn't need to wait all the time. So it's not just about waiting, but to keep them informed, to making sure that they know what's happening with their application. And next for me, I will actually be going through some of the timeline of what's being planned for us for the integration part of things. So now we are welcoming SmartRecruiter into the big family of SuccessFactors suites of product. So there are also a lot of integration point that's being planned for us. So I would say this is not an integration timeline. This is more of a roadmap for harmonization. So what's currently already available is the foundation point, the foundation integration. So first of all, for us, we will also go into details in the next slide later on. But what is currently already available for us would be the single point of entry to SmartRecruiters and SuccessFactors. So from here, you will be able to log in directly using one single set of credentials through IAS. And from there, you will be able to continue to navigate to various modules within SuccessFactors from one single homepage. And next, what's very important for our existing EC customer, Employee Central customer. So it could be that you are already maintaining your organizational data within EC. So rest assured, you don't need to maintain the same data separately in SmartRecruiters. So we will have a guided experience admin tool to guide you through to select which are the relevant foundation data that you can select to have them flow through to SmartRecruiters directly. So same like for position data as well. So moving forward, when we are using Employee Central in SuccessFactors, you will also have a position-driven job requisition process. So you can continue to raise our job rec from SuccessFactors EC, and then the info will flow through to SmartRecruiters for us to continue the hiring process there. So we also mentioned earlier, if now you are considering to transition to SmartRecruiters, but you think maybe I still want to wait a little bit, another option is for us to also bring in Winston chat first to our career site. So the benefit would be that it would ease up our candidate search time for the suitable job that they may want to have, as well as it's also easier for them to locate any relevant information about the company, as well as for the job. So to boost the employer brand, as well as the candidate experience here. So the integration doesn't just stop here. There are already a lot of interesting or exciting integration that's being planned for this cycle as well. For H1 release, so we are also having the integration between SuccessFactors and onboarding as well. So what will happen is that our user will completely be just maintained within SuccessFactors. So when it comes to the hiring team that we were seeing in the demo earlier, the user will actually be maintained and flow through from EC to SmartRecruiters. So again, we don't need to maintain two separate lists of employee lists. SuccessFactors will continue to be the source of truth for our employee data. And for any candidate that we have selected to be suitable for the job, we will also be able to push their info into onboarding 2.0 so that we will be able to continue our onboarding experience within SuccessFactors as well. And not just that, so another really exciting one that I am looking forward to in this half-year release would be the story reports. So currently what is available would be that we will be able to create a story or create reports already directly in SmartRecruiters itself. But moving forward, we may actually want to gel information from different domains. So let's say from recruiting as well as from Employee Central. We may also want to keep track of employee referral data. So for that, we may actually bring in the information to be available in story report. So we can have more dynamic information available, pulling data point from various domains within SuccessFactors and to have the ability to visualize this data within story report as dashboards. And the next one, since I am also actually a talent consultant, the next one that I'm really excited to know more about or to see for our future release integration would be for the skills harmonization. So in this case, the skill set that we have extracted from AI in Winston Chat or Agentic AI, it doesn't just stay within SmartRecruiter itself. It can later on flow through to Talent Intelligence Hub. And from there, we can continue to develop our employees or our candidates based on the skill set they already have, as well as the skill set they would like to have. And so for hire to retire, the skill set and the development of the employee is fully utilized or the requirements of it is being fully met within SuccessFactors modules. So moving forward, moving to the next slide. So we will just talk about a bit in detail about what is already available today in terms of the integration scope. So right now, if we are already using SuccessFactors Employee Central, there are various integration points that we may need to focus on for transiting from SF Recruiting to SmartRecruiters. So first of all, the single point of entry, we will now be able to integrate SmartRecruiters with our IAS platform, which means that now when we log into the system, one single set of credentials would allow us to be able to go into SmartRecruiters as well as all other modules within SuccessFactors as well. In terms of user experience to you, it's just like how you have been using the SuccessFactors solution all along. Log into the homepage, and you will be able to navigate to the different modules that you may want to access. Next would be for the foundation data. So this would be a key thing that we would need to take note, especially if we are already Employee Central users. So for that, we will now be able to select within an admin tool that's available from this release. You will now be able to select which are the foundation data that you would like to sync through from EC to SmartRecruiters. So earlier when Patch was showing the screen for creating a requisition or creating a job, you will be able to select from a list of location, for example. So this list of location is now being maintained just in Employee Central itself. And regularly, maybe in a daily process, we will be able to sync data from SuccessFactors to SmartRecruiters. So we don't need to maintain the data at two different places. Not just foundation data that will be available. So position data will also be something that can be synchronized from EC to SmartRecruiters. So moving forward, even for existing SmartRecruiters users, you may actually need to change in the future when we are having it integrated with SuccessFactors, because now it could be a position-driven hiring. So directly from our position org chart, you will be able to see which are the positions that already have an existing job rec being raised in SmartRecruiter. And you will be able to navigate from the position org chart to the SmartRecruiter view to reveal any associated requisition that you have. So it's a really convenient way for us to manage our position data as well as our hire. Now with our employee data, this would be the last integration point that we would like to highlight for what's already available today. So for existing employee data, you will be able to have the information flow through to SmartRecruiters. So when we are selecting any members for the hiring team, this information is directly available. We don't need to create any user separately within SmartRecruiters. And the same when it comes to our internal employee, when you are wanting to apply for jobs, your information will also be available within SmartRecruiters. And you will have an internal employee portal that allows you to apply for job internally. For any selected candidate, your information will also flow through to SuccessFactors directly. So for us to complete our hiring process, either in onboarding 2.0 or directly as a hire in EC. So again, this information will flow through smoothly for us, making sure that there's no repetitive admin work that's needed for our recruiter. So we have completed the walkthrough of what's the integration point available so far. So for us, we will now hand the stage back to Claire to talk about the transition approach.
Thank you, Jessie. So yes, we've seen all the great things that SmartRecruiters can do. Why wouldn't you not want to go to that at this point? So transition, it does look a little bit different for each customer, right? So there's kind of 3 different scenarios that we can see at the moment. So one is that you don't have recruitment implemented and you're now looking for a recruiting solution. You know, we would be looking at implementing SmartRecruiters from the beginning. We've got customers that are on SuccessFactors recruitment and they are ready to transition to SmartRecruiters now. We can start to assess your SuccessFactors configuration, have a look at your volumes, look at the data that's being captured, so that we can then put together a plan for you to migrate or transition over to SmartRecruiters. As part of that, we would be looking at the design, obviously looking at where we can enhance your process, have a look at your architecture, and, you know, map some of those integrations that Jessie was referring to. You do have options around doing things like pilots, particularly for global organizations. It might be that you want to pilot with a particular geography first, before rolling out to your full enterprise. There's obviously key focus areas that we would have around data migration, the architecture. There obviously will be business and change management activities that need to occur. That's the same as implementing any system, and the same with training and enablement. There is also a third scenario, and Jessie alluded to this in her roadmap that she talked about, which is, you know, you may be a SuccessFactors recruiting customer, but you're not yet ready to make that transition. There is elements of SmartRecruiters that you can start to adopt now, which is Winston, for example. So there's an ability to start seeing value from the SmartRecruiters product without fully implementing. So that is another option. I think the most important piece at this point in time is to have a think about where you're at, and look at when it might be a sensible decision for your organization. But it's never too early to start having conversations. Start speaking to us, start speaking to your partner, start speaking to people to get advice around what's the right move for you and when. I think the biggest mistake you can make is to ignore it, right? So start thinking now. The next slide, we've just got a couple of points around things that you can think about. Oh, sorry, no, I'll tell you why it should be us, actually. So why would Zalaris be the right partner to help you on the next step? So as I think we've started to demonstrate through this webinar, we do have deep expertise in SAP in general. And we've also made that step to get that expertise in SmartRecruiters, and particularly those integration points with SmartRecruiters. So we are all around designing a process and designing that experience, not just about implementing the technology. So that goes to the second point there, which is transformation. We always lead with a transformation mindset. We have end-to-end delivery services, as I mentioned at the beginning. So again, it's not just about implementing that technology and then leaving you to it. We've then also got that kind of support and optimization service post go live to help continue to grow the solution with you. So yeah, the last slide that I've got is just one to talk about around the checklist to think about. Sorry, Hannah, I'll come back to that one. Thank you. So recommended next steps. So we are offering a complimentary review of your SuccessFactors recruiting environment so that we can, I guess, give you a bit of an assessment around how that will look in SmartRecruiters and things to think about. So we are offering that as complimentary, no obligation, but you can reach out to us post the webinar. The second piece would be, once you understand what needs to be done, is really around building that business case to make the transition. You might want to look at executive briefings. We've got demonstrations ready to go so that we can take your talent acquisition teams, your leadership teams through SmartRecruiters in detail. Not as good as Padge, but we'll try. And then looking at what that next step might be, right? So whether it's a roadmap to transition, whether it's taking on some of the aspects of SmartRecruiters now and a plan for later, but we'll help you put together that plan. Now, one of the questions we get asked is, will I be the first one? So we'll go back to that other slide now, Hannah. Now, threaded throughout the presentation today, we've talked about different customers that are already live on SmartRecruiters, 4,000 plus, I think we spoke about. But just wanted to put some kind of notable brands up there that are already live on SmartRecruiters, are already seeing value from SmartRecruiters. So some really good use cases to think about. Now, they were signed pre the acquisition, but I think the value that they're seeing from the product still translates. And I think, Padge, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in March alone, SmartRecruiters had 35 go lives of SAP SuccessFactors recruiting customers going live with SmartRecruiters. So there's already a lot making the transition. So in no way would you be the first customer to be doing this. All right, I think that might be the end of my slides.
I'll throw in a few surprise ones there, but no, that was really amazing and really powerful stuff. Thank you so much to all of our speakers today. I appreciate that we have gone slightly over time. So if you do need to drop, we'll reach out in the next couple of days with the session recording. If you've got any questions in the interim, please do reach out. Or obviously, if you're an existing customer, feel free to shoot any questions to your account manager. If you did have a little bit more time, we do have a lot of great questions that have come through. Maybe if the speaker's happy to hang on for a little bit, we'll get through a couple of them. This is an important one. Is there a sunset date for SuccessFactors recruiting? Maybe Jessie, would you mind answering that one for us?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So for SuccessFactors recruiting, as of this H1 release, there's no confirmed date when this will be sunset yet. And SuccessFactors actually, or SAP has assured us that for any existing customer, there won't be any disruption in terms of using SF recruitment module. However, what we would like to highlight is that we are seeing a trend or a shift of all the R&D resources or development going to SmartRecruiters. So I do believe that the focus moving forward for the recruiting module would be for SmartRecruiters, not so much on SF recruitment. So I think what Claire has mentioned is definitely the right thing. It's never too early for us to start thinking about it. And if we start using it early, we get the benefit early as well. So definitely start talking with your team about what we could done, or whether it is whether or not we are at the right time to start with the transitioning plan as well.
Well, actually, that leads really well into a next question from Robert, who obviously is an existing SuccessFactors recruiting customer, and says, when is the right time to transition? I guess that means, what are the key considerations there? Maybe Claire, can you take that one?
Yeah, no, I definitely can. So look, for an existing SuccessFactors recruiting customer, there's obviously a few kind of contractual items that you probably want to consider in your when. So, having a look at when your current license agreement is up, and also looking at when the right time is from your kind of recruitment timeline. So, we have peaks and troughs in our recruitment processes. And so also looking at when the right time is to, have a go live and things like that. I think we've been quite clear that it's never too early to start thinking about it. Understanding your unique position in terms of where you're at with your recruiting processes, where you're at with your recruiting contract with SAP. And, even if you're way off from being ready, right? You're like, I'm not going to do that till 2028. At least there's options there to start seeing some value from SmartRecruiters, i.e. taking up the Winston chat. So there are many options. I think right now is the time to understand those options and understand what's right for you. And then, the sooner you can start seeing value from this great product, I think the better.
Absolutely. And maybe this one I can throw to you, Pag. Will Joule and Winston integrate or talk to each other?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So we get this question quite a lot, actually, from the sessions we run. So coming back to, if you remember the roadmap, so the quick answer is they're both going to stay. But if I explain a little bit about that, so if you think around when I did the functionality roadmap, you had Winston and all the different flavors that Winston has today being enhanced, and then additional ones coming. And the whole point of that is agentic AI agents carry out different tasks, and Joule carries out and supports particular tasks, and Winston carries out particular tasks. And Winston will stay based on the fact that it covers the TA, candidate experience, efficiencies, productivity side of the house, where Joule doesn't. So there isn't any overlap in the two. What is, and you saw from Jesse's slide in terms of the integration roadmap, was that we're SAP and SmartRecruiters team are going to be looking at the handoffs. So when is it going to hand off from Winston to Joule? But both of them staying, both of them being heavily developed. Great question.
Yeah, sounds good. And look, sorry, we are quite over time, so maybe just one more, because it has come through a couple of times, and I know that you did touch on it already, Claire, but there's a question saying, will we be the first to transition? So I guess, just a little bit more confidence needed for some existing customers.
No, absolutely would not be the first. I'd say just don't be the last, right? But absolutely wouldn't be the first. Definitely 4,000 plus proven cases of implementing SmartRecruiters. And as I mentioned, I think just before, 35 alone going live in March, transitioning from SuccessFactors Recruiting. So definitely not the first. I also think that, we will start to see, I talk from an Asia Pac perspective. I think we've already spoken to and seen a lot of customers start to go this way. So I think you will start to hear of more case studies going around in your peripheral vision. So you'll start to not feel alone, I think, fairly quickly.
Amazing. No, well, thank you so much to all the speakers today. I think it's been a really fantastic and informative session. I am team pro pineapple on pizza, but it must have
same.
chili. Yeah. So Claire, Jessie, Pag, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone that's joined us today, wherever you are in the world. Apologies if we didn't get the chance to get to your question. We'll round back to you one-on-one with those responses in the next couple of days. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day or night.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, everyone.